Vice Mayor Mike Rama and the other officials of the Vice Mayor's League, including our host Vice Mayor, Mayor Yap of Tagaloan, our other hosts in this gathering. We have in Cagayan de Oro, Congressman Uy and Congressman Rodriguez. In the province of Misamis Oriental, we have Governor Moreno and Congressman Emano. And their neighbor here in Northern Mindanao, Congressman Pancrudo from Bukidnon. And to all of you, Vice Mayors, first of all, happy 20th anniversary to your league. And thank you, Congressman, Governor, Mayor, Vice Mayor, for hosting this important event, the 20th anniversary of the League of Vice Mayors. And I'd like to take this opportunity first to convey a message to the people of Misamis Oriental and Cagayan de Oro from Secretary Evdane, because we have been here several times due to the recent floods, that since the DPWH dredger that was here was in need of repairs during the time of your great floods, DPWH has instead deployed a Cebu-based commercial barge-mounted dredger and reported that it started its operation last February 16. So I hope that that is so. So I came here to Cagayan de Oro just to make sure, not just to make sure that that dredger is already here and working, but also, of course, because the Vice Mayors of the Philippines are crucial partners, are an important player in the country's fight against poverty, and therefore an important player now that, especially now that the nation is warding off the fallout of the global economic crisis. I thank Vice Mayor Yap for pointing out that we've so far been able to weather the global crisis quite well. And Governor Moreno, who was a banker before he entered politics, was rattling off to me all the indicators that show that how well our country is doing during these very bad global times. Along with all other countries, developing and developed alike, we are working very hard not to get swamped by the world financial meltdown. In many respects, we were prepared for this global crisis. Our preparation has mitigated some of the hardships that have arrived with this global challenge. The Philippines generated 8% GNP growth in 2007, and in 2008, when 2/3 of the world went into recession, we still managed a 6.1% GNP growth. All around us, we see countries having a much more difficult time. In the fourth quarter of 2008, Japan's GDP declined by 12.7%, US by 5.1%, Thailand by 4.3%, Singapore by 3.7%, and Korea, Han Jin's home country, by 5.6%. But our fourth quarter GDP went up by 4.5%. And up to late last year, Filipinos had no difficulties finding and keeping the important jobs overseas that were helping their families and contributing to our economy. Food prices were coming under control, inflation was being checked. But since that time, the global financial turmoil has continued to spread, and it has jeopardized the well-being of billions of people across the globe. Just before our meeting here, I had a meeting with the vice mayors of Metro Manila. And they said that they want to help to address the needs of the displaced workers. Well, as far as OFWs are concerned, it seems that the Filipinos are the first to be hired and the last to be fired. That's why, since November up to today, of our 8 million Filipinos abroad, only 5,500 have had to come back because they lost their jobs. Here in our own country, we have 39,000 domestic workers, mostly in the export sectors of electronics, auto parts, garments, and mining, who have lost their jobs, although 3,000 new jobs are being processed daily. That is why after this event, I will proceed to an event with the TESDA where they are working on jobs that are already connected to the recruiters and the employers. Well, we are here and you're all tourists, most of you are, because you've come from all over. I'd like to let you know also, according to Ace Durano, the province mate of Mike Rama, that tourism is bucking the regional trend. And I hope that the hotels here, this hotel and the other hotels in Cagayan de Oro, are sharing the experience of other hotels and resorts, which are fully booked for the first quarter of this year. Our domestic strength comes in part from our early response. In January 2008, we approved a stimulus of 1.4% of GDP. We implemented it in March when the global food crisis erupted. And in spite of that 1.4% of GDP stimulus, our deficit was less than 1% of GDP. We reacted to this first wave of the economic downturn. We worked hard to manage, I'm sure you remember, the huge spike in the prices and accessibility of food, fuel, and rice. So we spent 11 billion to augment the DA for its rice self-sufficiency program to be completed in 5 years, 24 billion for National Food Authority subsidies, 36 billion of tax relief to the middle class, which increased their take-home pay because of the tax exemption for minimum wage earners that our congressmen here worked very hard to pass. 5 billion of conditional cash transfers, 7.5 billion of various cash grants, and 32 billion that went to a 10% salary increase for government employees. That was our response to the first wave of the crisis. But there was a second wave of the world crisis. No longer food and fuel, but now financial. The crisis that has to come to be called the global tsunami. But through this time, because our GDP and our GNP have been growing, it shows that fiscal stimulus works. And that should work not only for the national government, but also for the local governments. And you are in charge of how to spend the budget of your localities. We have acted to protect the poor as we have also worked to protect our nation. But while our efforts have been reasonably successful, no country can be totally insulated from the pain and hardship being felt throughout the world. That's why we must all be vigilant in our efforts to respond quickly to changing circumstances. We've been relatively lucky because we worked hard to be lucky. We've been able to cushion the blow today because of the pain and unpopularity that we have had to endure. But with the support of your Congress and you our dedicated public servants in the local government. We took the economic reform medicine. We improved our banking system.